Exterior, Terra Manor, afternoon. Jane's ancestral manor, known as Terra Manor, had been in her family for generations. As she drove up the winding driveway, the magnificent building came into view. The imposing structure was a striking example of colonial architecture, with its white pillars and grand entrance. The sight of her family's home always filled Jane with a sense of comfort and belonging. As she parked her car, Jane's eyes were drawn to the stunning vista in front of her. The Grand Canyon stretched out before her in all its glory, a natural wonder that never failed to take her breath away. The canyon walls were a kaleidoscope of colours, from the deep reds and oranges to the pale yellows and pinks. The sun shone down on the landscape, highlighting the rugged terrain and casting long shadows across the rocks. Jane couldn't resist the urge to take it all in, to drink in the beauty of her surroundings. She stepped out of her car and was immediately enveloped in the warmth of the sun. The light breeze carried the scent of blooming wildflowers and pine trees, and she closed her eyes, letting her senses take over. Opening her eyes, she gazed out at the canyon once more. The view was so expansive, it was hard to take it all in at once. She could see the winding Colorado River far below, a thin ribbon of blue that carved its way through the rock formations. Birds circled overhead, their cries echoing off the canyon walls. For a moment, Jane forgot about the upcoming date, the stress of school, and the worries of daily life. She was lost in the grandeur of nature, and she felt her spirit lifted. The feeling of peace and contentment that washed over her was priceless, and she knew that no matter what the future held, she would always have this place to come back to. Interior, Terra Manor, afternoon. Jane breathed in the familiar scent of freshly baked cookies that filled the air, reminding her of all the fond memories of her childhood spent with Grams. The interior of the manor was just as breathtaking as the view outside. The decor was a perfect blend of classic and modern styles, with antique furnishings and contemporary accents that gave the space a unique charm. The living room was adorned with family photos that lined the walls, capturing memories of Jane's ancestors dating back several generations. As Jane walked through the hallways, she noticed the intricate details of the architecture that she had often taken for granted. The intricate crown mouldings, elegant chandeliers, and richly patterned wallpaper all added to the grandeur of the manor. Jane's parents had always been proud of their family heritage and had spared no expense in maintaining and preserving the manor's beauty and history. Jane continued her tour of the manor, passing by the elegant dining room and the cozy library filled with hundreds of books. She made her way up the grand staircase, which had been a favourite spot for her and her friends to take photos during their childhood playdates. As she walked down the hallway, she could hear the faint sound of Graham's favourite classical music drifting from her room. Interior, Graham's bedroom, afternoon. As she reached Graham's room, she paused for a moment to listen to the soothing melody of the music. Her grandmother's room was filled with her treasured possessions, from her antique jewellery box to the intricate tapestry that adorned the walls. Jane's eyes wandered over to the pictures of her parents, who had passed away in a car accident when she was just a child. Grams had been her rock during those tough times and had raised Jane as her own. As Jane stood in her grandmother's room, she felt a sense of comfort and peace wash over her. The manor may have been grand and imposing, but it was also a place filled with love and warmth, a place that held all the memories of her childhood and family.
Hey, Grams.
Hello, my dear. How was your day at school?
It was good, just the usual stuff, you know.
But Grams was no fool. She could tell that Jane was holding something back.
Is everything all right, dear?
Jane hesitated for a moment, but then decided to come clean.
Actually, Grams, there's something I need to tell you. I'm going on a date with a guy, and we're going to hike together in the canyon.
Grams smiled, looking happy for her granddaughter.
Well, that sounds like a wonderful adventure. I'm sure you'll have a great time.
Jane smiled back at her grandmother, feeling relieved that she had finally shared her news. She was looking forward to her date with Aidan and the incredible experience they would share together. Interior, Jane's bedroom, evening. Jane sat cross-legged on the floor of the room, her eyes closed and her hands resting on her knees. She took a deep breath, inhaling the scent of frankincense and myrrh incense that filled the room, resin with a rich, earthy aroma that has been used for millenniums in spiritual and religious practices. It is often associated with the ancient art of divination, as its scent is believed to enhance one's ability to connect with higher realms and receive messages from the divine. Slowly, she began to chant in the time-honored language of her lineage, Terra Manor. The Terra Manor, with its singular alphabet, was a sacred treasure, protected and venerated by her forebears. Known only to a select few in her family, it was believed to be the language of the gods, and those who could speak it were said to possess a special connection to the divine. As Jane pronounced the mystical verses of a Terra Manor, she felt her spiritual energy ascend, as if transcending her corporeal form and merging with a higher reality. The incense blazed brilliantly, casting a warm, golden aura throughout the room. The air became heavy with the sweet, entrancing fragrance of the burning resin, fostering an atmosphere of tranquility and reverence. As she continued to chant, Jane could feel the ancient wisdom and knowledge of her ancestors flowing through her, guiding her in her journey to connect with the divine. The symbols and pictures that appeared before her were like a message from the past, a reminder of the deep spiritual heritage that she was a part of. For Jane, this spiritual practice was a way to connect with something greater than herself, a way to tap into the infinite wisdom and power of the universe. It was a reminder that she was part of a larger, interconnected web of life, and that everything she did had an impact on the world around her. As Jane continued to meditate, she felt a sudden surge of energy coursing through her body. It felt like a tingling sensation that spread from the tips of her toes all the way up to the crown of her head. She focused on the feeling, letting it grow stronger and more intense with each passing moment. In her mind's eye, she saw herself as a powerful sorceress standing strong against the forces of darkness that threatened her world. As she meditated, Jane became increasingly aware of the deep spiritual connection her family had to Egypt. Her ancestors had been guardians of ancient magical secrets, and many of their practices had been passed down through the generations. She remembered the stories her grams used to tell her about their ancestors, how they had been powerful witches and magicians who had fought against the darkness that threatened to consume their world. In her meditation, Jane saw images of the great pyramids and temples of ancient Egypt, the colossal statues of gods that towered over the landscape. She felt the power of the Nile River flowing through her veins, and she saw the gods of Egypt speaking to her, imparting their knowledge and wisdom. She felt a deep sense of belonging and purpose, as if she had finally found her place in the world. But then, the images began to change, and Jane saw herself in the middle of a supernatural war between witches and vampires. She saw battles being fought with magic and dark spells, and she saw the horrors that came with them. Blood was spilled on both sides, and the air was thick with the stench of death. Jane was startled, and she quickly opened her eyes. She looked around her room, but everything seemed normal. She closed her eyes again and began to meditate on what she had just experienced. She realized that the symbols and pictures she had seen were a warning, a glimpse into a possible future where dark forces threatened to destroy everything she held dear. Jane knew that she had to prepare for what was to come, and she vowed to do everything in her power to protect herself and her loved ones from this dark fate. Interior: Jane's bedroom. Night. Under the dim luminescence of a single lamp, Jane paces restlessly, her brow creased with worry, the floorboards beneath her creaking in time with her troubled thoughts.
That vision, it can't be a coincidence. It's as if a storm is brewing.
A sense of foreboding fills the room, a tension that gathers like the calm before a storm. Suddenly, she halts mid-pace, her gaze intense, forgotten memories surfacing.
The wars. The age-old struggle between witches and vampires.
With a newfound determination, She darts out of her sanctum, her robe billowing behind her, as she bounds down the grand staircase towards the warm heart of the manor. Interior, Terra Manor parlor, night.
Grams. I've seen it. The war of witches and vampires, fire, chaos, and all-out battle. It's all coming to me.
Seated in a high-backed armchair, an ancient tome resting in her lap, Grams looks up at her excited granddaughter. The flickering firelight in the hearth accentuates the cryptic lines on her weathered face. Her reaction is surprisingly serene, her lips curling up in a knowing smile as she studies Jane, a twinkle of anticipation in her wise eyes.
Yes, Jane. Our ancestors have been whispering about these wars for countless generations.
You knew about all this?
Yes, child. It's deeply rooted in our family tree. The witches and vampires have been on opposite sides of a silent battlefield for more years than we can remember.
But why? Why would they want to fight each other?
It's not a simple tale, Jane. They've been tussling over control of Terra.
Terra, but that's us, our lineage. What does that word even mean?
Terra, my dear, is an old word for Earth. Long ago, the gods chose a few families from Terra, gracing them with an innate connection to the universe's energy. These families birthed the witches, sworn protectors against the vampires who seek to exploit these resources for their own selfish purposes.
I see.
As Grams begins to speak, her voice takes on a hushed, reverential tone, as though sharing a precious secret.
Are you prepared, Jane, to unravel the tale of our family's deep-seated bond to ancient Egypt?
Jane's eyes sparkle with curiosity, a mirror to her grandmother's own, as she nods eagerly, like a child about to hear an enchanting bedtime story.
Long ago, our forebears resided in the heartland of Kem, a place we now know as ancient Egypt. They were people of wisdom and power who honored the gods and the land's energy. However, they saw their civilization waning, felt the foundation of their society crumbling beneath them. They realized the need to find a new sanctuary.
Grams leans forward, her frail hands resting on the arms of her chair, eyes ablaze with the history she carries within her.
So, they embarked on a formidable journey, crossing vast seas and relentless deserts until they found a land now known as America. Here, in the lap of the grand, majestic canyon, they built a new haven, a place where they could thrive in harmony with nature and with each other.
Jane hangs on every word, the air around her thick with anticipation, curiosity glinting in her eyes.
But their journey didn't end there. The high priestess of the Terra colony, chosen to lead her people, was blessed with a vision of a desolate future. A future steeped in violence, where the world would be fractured by war, nature's balance would be ruptured, and the people would wander lost and fearful.
Jane feels a chill creep up her spine, the gravity of Graham's words sinking in.
Yet, she also foresaw a beacon of hope for a descendant of her prosperous colony, a leader who would bring Terra back to harmony, who would restore the world's equilibrium and rekindle the land's power.
Jane's heart thrums with pride, a slow realization dawning upon her.
You, my dear, are a descendant of this resilient colony. The High Priestess prophesied the birth of a witch with an insatiable curiosity. You are the chosen one who will guide Terra back to harmony. You carry a formidable destiny, but you must always remember your ancestors' wisdom, the potency of the land, and divine magic. The High Priestess's vision must be your beacon, your source of hope.
I had no idea, Grams. Why wasn't I told any of this growing up?
That was under the directive of Kensa, the High Priestess. She held the belief that every Terra witch should first learn the craft, the basics, without the weight of this grand narrative. Only then, when the prophesied one is born, They would be naturally equipped to uncover the truth and guide Terra back to harmony.
It makes sense now.
Just remember, child, this is no easy path. The vampires are relentless in their pursuit of Terra, and they will see you as a threat.
I will protect Terra, Grams. The vampires won't succeed, not on my watch.
That's the spirit, Jane. But you must also tread with caution and not let your emotions overshadow your judgment. The balance of nature is fragile. One wrong step could spell catastrophe.
I understand, Grams. I'll be careful.
I have faith in you, dear. You have the heart of a true Terra witch.
Jane envelops her Grams in a heartfelt embrace. Determination courses through her veins, a resolve to fulfill her destiny as the prophesied one and guide Terra back to harmony. She knows the weight of the responsibilities she carries, but also recognizes the wisdom and strength she possesses to face it head on.